Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Comic Arts Workshop. My name is Ramon Gill. I'm the organizer. We've been doing this since 2017. We should do something when we hit the 10th anniversary. We usually have some kind of thing, maybe once a month, but lately we've been doing it twice a month just because we have been getting so many guests, and I don't want to like wait forever for them to come on. So we're just doubling the pace. So tonight we have the Yuan twins. Am I saying that right? The Yuan?
Oddly enough, we are the last people to ask on the proper pronunciation of our last name. Just for reference, we grew up in Texas, so we mispronounce. There will be syllables added to whatever word you pick.
Okay, we'll just say John and Matt then. So we are very lucky to have two today. We've never had twins on here before. We've had siblings. I'm not sure if you know Enrica Jang, but she does Red Stylo Media. But her and her brother came on. He was a filmmaker out of LA, and she was, I think, Baltimore or Philadelphia or New Jersey, something like that. But today we have twins. We have and rather than me going on, let me just ask you guys to introduce yourself. But first, if you could please show some love to John and Matt for coming on.
you. Thank you all for having us here. We're very, very happy to be here. Thank you for asking us on.
So why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do at First Comics?
Mhm.
Sure.
So Matt and I are the deputy publishers at First Comics. We are also creators. We have a few titles that we publish through First Comics. As creators, we write and we illustrate our own titles. Some people are like, "Oh, you're a one-stop shop." It generally stems from the fact that we don't play well with others. Like on comics, creatively, we are like, "No, it's my way or the highway." And um, as a little bit of an aside, the only physical like fights we have ever been in were over creative. It was actually three times and was over writing.
Yeah.
So, um, we can't well kill each other. So, we're a perfect team. If we got anyone else involved, they would probably be saddled with a lot of, mental and emotional trauma, and we don't want to inflict that on anyone. So,
This,
so as creators, we're the team that we deal with. As deputy publishers, we're hopefully a lot more uh, understanding, and you will have people who will say that we are not. But
does this mean that First Comics only publishes work by you guys?
no, no,
No.
no. No, it would be a very dull place if it did.
Yeah.
We have a we have a ton of different creators. Both I would say in just people like who've been in the industry for decades, like Mike Barron, Bill Willingham, Steve Stern.
Wow.
We are going to be publishing some stuff from Max Allan Collins. And then we have some new creators. Adam Ivan, one of our newer creators is Jared Sams. He just published. We just published Space Negro 1 through 4. Number 5 ran afoul of some issues, not his fault, and but that one has been a runaway success. And then we have some other creators like Dan Cody, one of the original artist of Zen Intergalactic Ninja, co-creator of that. We have Orlando Harding, the Philbach brothers. Uh, really are some of the most prolific creators that we have. If you take a look at our website, I want to say a good third of the library is their stuff. And also Doc Wyatt, who's also who's in animation right now, but he also did a couple of titles for us, which are really great: Alien Bones and Witchfinder General's Intern. And if you're not familiar with the name, you will be familiar with a movie he produced, which was Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where he got. I mean, like when we found out we were working with the producer of Napoleon Dynamite, our our heads exploded a little bit.
That's First Comics specialize in a particular kind of genre?
No.
Not
So
Run.
as our boss would put it, so here's another personality that works at First is our boss, Ken F. Levin. He produces a little show that you may or may not have heard of called The Boys, and
oh wow, okay.
executive producer on that show. But the way he puts it is he wants to publish books that he doesn't see anywhere else, that no one else will touch. um, and I think we've done a pretty good job in doing that as a company. Not John and me specifically, but as a company, I think we've done a very good job.
Yeah.
Of publishing those books that wouldn't see publication anyplace else. Even with Dark Horse out there, Image, um, they sometimes shy from some stuff.
How
Uh,
long has First Comics been around?
First Comics began 40, now it's what, 42, 43 years ago?
yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
And it had a bit of a hiatus in the mid 90s. It got purchased by venture capitalists, which is, I never know any story that ends well with that introduction. Um, but Ken was one of the original co-founders of First back in the 80s, and
Yeah, I
he,
remember first I remember the logo from back then.
yeah, same company, same co-founder. And he repurchased it, all the rights and properties and stuff, and decided to relaunch back in, I think, 2012. So we've been back in business now for about a decade, and going slowly but surely. And I think we're coming out with a bunch of really, really great, really unique titles that I think. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm harshing on anyone, because I'm not. Matt and I love comics, but I think any other publisher, any other, editor in chief would have messed up some of these titles that we put out. They would have gone for more,
Market friendly.
yeah,
Um,
and totally screwed the character, the soul of the property that the creator had put in.
Does that mean that you guys don't do a lot of editorial
we
guidance?
no, as far as that goes, so our goal from an editorial standpoint is to make sure that the book is the best incarnation of that property that the creator is trying to create. So if we'll go with something that everybody knows, Star Wars, right? If George Lucas had come to Ken and said, "Hey, I want Star Wars, but there's going to be funny animals and you know, zinger line sidekicks," Ken would probably say, "That's not the movie you're going for. Wait till the third one for your cute animal sidekicks." Um, but what you're going for is more space opera, not Disney cartoon. So yeah, we do have editorial. We do try to provide editorial oversight, just so that the book is the best that it can be. But we don't try to change what it is. Um, it's a very fine line to walk sometimes, and there are occasions where the creators will come back and say, "No, I think that this is wrong." But the absolute worst thing that any creator can say in their defense is, "Well, it's my book." Yeah, we understand that. That is never going to be um, misunderstood. We understand that the creators that come to us, they own the book. What we're trying to do is make it the best book that it can be. And like John and I, we don't play well with others, as has been formerly noted. But Ken has provided some editorial oversight that made our books better. And it's hard to do anything where there's money involved. That's not your money. Where someone's not going to want some kind of input.
Yeah.
Luckily, Ken um,
as editors go, is the best we have ever worked with, and he has really taught us a lot in terms of how we deal with creators when there's editorial oversight.
Yeah.
I think his first rule is don't rewrite it for them. That's not your job. If something disobeys the internal logic or betrays the theme or is somehow otherwise inconsistent with what the creator set out to do, point it out to them, let them fix it. That way the voice remains consistent and they can, go on and have their problem fixed without us saying, well, I wrote that or whatever.
Does this mean that there have been collaborations that went south?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of times we will get submissions that so I know that everyone says if you get your elevator pitch down, it's 15 seconds, get it done, get it out. But if you sit there and you're my story is A meets B and A and B are terrible, or it's a terrible mix, you're in trouble. One guy said, no. It's like Star Wars meets Harry Potter. And we're like, well, Harry Potter's already kind of like Harry Potter meets Star Wars, because kid wakes up, has magical powers, some old dude helps him defeat an evil power. It's generally the same. And so we had that one pitch and we're kind of like, and then there have been a few where the basic premise we try to avoid at first anyway, we try to avoid anything that can be seen or misconstrued or actually is a knockoff of something else. We don't care for that too much. It's like, once again, if someone sits there and says, oh yeah, it's called galactic conflict or galaxy conflict and they mean Star Wars, like we're probably not gonna do that. I mean, and generally speaking, something that is horrible and great, and awesome and soul crushing all at the same time, is that every comic creator has an ego. How they deal with it is part of the secret sauce that makes comics so wonderful. And sometimes you're like, yeah, this guy's got an ego, but man, is he freaking brilliant. Or, she, is really difficult to deal with, but my God, like her writing is amazing, And so it's fascinating at times because, a lot of times it's going to say, oh, this person has an ego. It's like, well, yeah, but they can back it up. It's pretty cool. So you do your best to deal with that.
So how did you guys first get into comics?
I think pretty much. I mean, if you want to go way, way back, it's pretty standard story. We were always fans of comic books. But if you want to be, more direct in terms of like what directly got us into comic books, we broke into movies first, which is supremely unhelpful for anyone who's trying to break into comics. It turned out that we moved to LA to be screenwriters. Wound up working in reality TV, and one of my coworkers was a gentleman by the name of Jody Hill, who he certainly was driven to not be in reality TV. And one day he had saved up enough money. He went and he shot a small movie called The Foot Fist Way, got into a festival called Sundance, and a few years later, we get a phone call from him, and he's like, hey guys, I know you don't like to do this, but you're going to want to do this. And we thought he wanted us to be production assistants or catering or someone's assistant. And after he stopped laughing, he said, no, it's much bigger than that. I wrote roles for you guys. And we're like, oh crap. And he's like, yeah, you're going to start with Seth Rogen. And
after we regained,
like, oh.
you know,
But then fast forward after Observe and Report comes out, we went back to working reality TV, and Jared Sams, and keep note of that name because that will come up. He will come up again. We walked into his office, and Jared had a bunch of pages up. He was doing his own comic book called Space Negro, and we were just making, we were just, pretending to be like, because we'd heard it all before, from like wannabe producers who were like, what you need this, you need that. And so Matt and I were just riffing on that. You need more violence, you need more action, you need more, gratuitous sex, blah, 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 blah. And Jared, stone cold serious, turns to us and says, I'm going to call bullshit. I think you guys should do your own comic instead of telling me what to do. Because I see you have drawings up in your cubicle, and we had all these, weird little sketches and stuff up in our, taped up in our cubicles. And he was like, I see it, you should do it. And we're like, nah, we don't have the time, we don't have the the discipline, we don't know what we'd be doing. And he said, okay, once again, I'm going to call bullshit. Because, and here's the amazing thing about Jared. Like us, he wanted to mainly write. And he was like, I want to make comic books, but I don't have the money to pay an artist. So the son of a bitch taught himself how to draw. And so he was like, if I can do that, there is no earthly reason why you guys can't do your own. We're like, hell, he's got a point. And so we got into comics as a bit of a challenge. Jared and Sam basically told us, look, don't tell other people what to do it yourself. We're like, okay. And so that's when we started self-publishing.
When was this?
Huh?
When was this?
2012.
Yeah, 2012. And then in 2013, late 13, early 14, in 2012, we opened a comic book store in West LA. Lasted about 5 years, but it was a good experience. Cool Cats Comics and Cards. It was on West Pico. And as it just so happens, Steve Stern, co-creator of Zen Intergalactic Ninja, the original writer, and actually thus far sole writer of it, walks into our store. And as it so happens, so our first self-published title was called Declan and Chang. I am working to get issue 5 finished so that we can, get it out there. And Steve says, don't I know you guys from somewhere? He had seen Observe and Report. He saw us from that. And he was like, yeah. We're like, yeah, that's us. And he's like, I didn't know you guys made comics. And we're like, yeah, we self-publish. We own the comic store. We love comics. And he was like, well, you should meet my publisher because he's amazing. He's a great guy. And we're like, okay. And if you happen to be at a convention or buy it off of eBay, some of the early issues of Declan and Chang, to say the art is rough is being very polite. And it's I've gotten better, but it was enough to impress Steve. Steve introduced us to Ken, and at that point we're like, look, the art on this is not strong enough. It's, and coloring it is a pain in the ass. We'll get you something new. And he's like, okay, cool. And it was really neat because Steve was like, we need to come up with ideas. And Steve said, I got the idea. You two as superheroes. And Matt says, we're not that cool. And I agree, we're not that cool. And so he's like, okay. Steve's like, okay. You two are bounty hunters and you hunt superheroes. And Matt's like, you're going the wrong darn direction here. We are not that cool. And so finally, Matt's like, hold on a minute. Comic with us as process servers, serving court documents to superheroes, because everyone freaking hates process servers. And so that's how Serving Soups came about. That was our first title with 1First. Ken loved the idea. I thumbnailed out the first issue and he liked it. And so I think that came out in 2014. Yeah.
And that was our break into First Comics and being able to call ourselves published creators.
And you've been with them ever since.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, as deputy publishers, you said?
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it might be obvious, but what are the primary duties?
So the primary duties, now this may change from company to company, but at First Comics, it's pretty much everything except outreach to retailers. We have a director for that, Felicity Helfand, talks to all of the retailers, and shipping and order fulfillment. We don't do that either.
Yeah, what we do is we do handle submissions. If it makes it past us, then if we like it, we kick it upstairs to Ken. He has final say on everything. We hunt and peck for creators. A lot of times we go to conventions, we'll buy books, and it's like, oh, this looks cool. Are you published? Blah blah blah. We do some editing with things that we are either going to print or funneling through the pipeline. And then a lot of scheduling. We help scheduling for convention appearances, printing schedule, handling Diamond, all that fun stuff. Matt is the one that mainly handles Diamond. I don't handle them too well.
They're a joy to work with.
Well, a couple of years ago, on an image panel, I asked the creators what do they not like, or what are the pros and cons, and they said was that once they sign the image contract and the book is published, comes the part that they hate the most, which is that they have to promote it, because and then Image didn't like really do much to help them promote. They were just on their own. Image produced it, and then if it didn't sell, it's because they didn't promote it. So it's up to them
Right.
to promote it. So let me ask you, what kind of support do you provide to your creators after the book has come off the presses?
So okay, let me start out by saying I feel bad for Image. I mean, everyone thinks that they're a huge company and they've got just gobs of money that they can throw at stuff, and that marketing is easy. Marketing is, I mean, people get paid for it for a reason. I mean, it's a full-time and then some job, As far as the support that we offer, it really depends on the book. Like most publishers in this marketplace, there's not a lot of extra cash to throw around on advertising. And in any event, we're in sort of this weird time where Diamond is no longer the monopoly that it used to be. So do you buy an ad with Luna's catalog? Do you buy an ad with Diamond's catalog? Random House, Penguin? Who do you buy an ad with, right?
Or media,
Yeah, where the dollar is going to make the most impact. So then you've got to go to marketing folks, and that just adds dollars because now you're paying their overhead. And it becomes a thing. Now, what we do at First is we do have a marketing firm working with the company, and we generally go by the monthly release. Our director of retailer outreach, she will call stores directly, sometimes in conjunction with the creator, and say, hey, this new title's coming out. The final order is due today. You might want to check it out. And then we also have support through convention appearances. Now, it's easiest if you are in the West Coast area, because then the conventions, we all know where we're coming from, where we're going, and we will pay to get you into a convention, depending on if hotels are necessary. Sometimes we spring for that. But it really depends on the book. It depends on the creator. But I think the game is pretty much the same all around. The creator has, you guys may not like it, but it's part of your world now. You got to do that social media thing. You've got to, reach out to reviewers and stuff like that. It's just,
and to be fair, some creators prefer to retain control over that.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. How many movies have we had posters for where it's like, oh, that looks like a zany comedy, and it's like a really dark drama about like, mass murder. It's like some creators are like, no, don't touch it. I will take care of it. I will, and that's fine. That
Yeah.
worked.
We had a creator do that to us. They said, I don't like my work being portrayed in such a way.
Yeah, I'll take care of it.
And so we're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
You got it.
So, and so that's why we say it depends on the creator and the book, because a lot of times it's like, no, this is the way I want it done, and then some creators just don't care whether they get it's odd. Some of them don't care if they got it or not, get it or not, but it's it's probably the toughest part of the publishing biz.
Got it. So it looks like, I know I had a string of questions, but they got answered throughout just through the course of conversation. And we're already at the half-hour mark. So I'm going to open it up to the audience to see if anybody has anything they'd like to ask you guys. So who wants to go? Oh, wow. Okay. Let's ladies first. Jill?
Oh, how sweet. Thank you. Gentlemen, it's you guys look like you're having fun all the time. Maybe that's not true, but you really look like you are. I was thinking of some other creators who are twins, Os Gemios, the amazing Brazilian graffiti artists who've gone on to do all these amazing things. And they never sign their work anything but Os Gemios, the twins. And I what it's like for you guys working together. Like, are you drawing on the same paper, or are like, how interactive are you two in your process?
So the general process works like this, depending on whose idea it was. Either like, so we'll go with Lovetown. Lovetown was John's idea. John does the art, and so he generally is the one who leads the charge on the stories. He'll write the first draft. Maybe I give notes, and then he either addresses them or defends the way that he's going. And then I provide support. I add the coloring, I add the digital Zipatone, and I do the lettering. I make some light edits during the lettering.
And that's an important thing, is that like our most collaborative is during the lettering phase, because it's like then you can really finesse the dialogue and make sure that it's getting across, once again, the best story that you're looking for.
Yeah. And so, but if it's something like Inspector O, which was my idea, then I take the charge on writing. He gives me notes and I address them, whatever, and we go from there. So that's how we collaborate. We don't draw together. Our styles are pretty different. But we do collaborate very closely in the planning, the writing, and then the editing phase.
Oh, okay. And of course, we're dying to know about the physical fight. And was it, you didn't put the lines on the eye correctly?
It is super embarrassing. Like, we couldn't even tell you what scene we disagreed on, but both times I basically the tempo of our argument is getting worse and higher and hotter and hotter until I finally just bushwhack John, right? I just like pow, and twice I landed a very solid blow, like right there on the jawline, just boom, as hard as I could. And all I did was piss him off. I was hoping he would be at least stunned enough for me to run away or something like that. And the first time it happened, I immediately saw that look in his eyes. I'm like, oh, I screwed up. I immediately just started apologizing, and then I just ran for my life. And
and then the police officer, a police officer actually stopped by, and he's like, what's going on here? And we're like, we're just having an argument about writing, sir.
And he gets this look on his face like, I'm not getting involved. And he's like, okay, well, just don't. And like, drove off.
And I
This is
thought I
in
was in
public.
trouble with the police.
Oh.
Oh,
Well, as long as you don't take it public. I can think of a couple of other brothers who have done that.
You never
Oh.
know.
I have a question.
Sure, Char, go ahead.
Are you, first of all, you work for movies, and secondly, are you planning to use generative artificial intelligence for your comics and art in the future?
Okay, so yes, we do act. We how often we act is up to other people, but we do enjoy that.
We're
in
producers, writers.
Yeah, but in terms of generative AI, using that for either movies or comics, no. We have a very, very strong moral opposition to it. We think that as it is trained by grabbing data and work from other artists without their permission, we view it as theft. And so your opinion may vary. It may be diametrically opposed to ours. It is simply that's our stance. And so as a result, no, we will not use it if we can help it. We will not publish it if it is left up to us. And hopefully we don't have to work, find out somewhere down the line that someone that we admire has used it, because we don't.
Well,
it's our thing.
And also, just as a note to anybody who might be thinking about being sly about it, if you ever sign a contract with First Comics, there will be a line in there in the contract that states that if you use generative AI or any work derived from that AI, and you don't tell us about it, you will owe us $5 million. The legal ramifications, to say nothing of the creative distaste for AI, our publisher Ken agrees. He's like, it's just too much of a gray area, and if we use it in any of our books and we are legally liable, then that's just not worth it. So yeah, if you try to sneak it in on us, there will be penalties and they will hurt. And by the way, Ken's a great lawyer.
Yeah.
Okay, now, thanks so much for that question, Char. Greg, you had a question?
Yeah, I actually have two if I might, but I can let Jay
Yeah,
go
ahead,
in
go ahead.
between the questions. The first question was at the end of what you were discussing with publicity and PR. And there's a lot of money involved, and I'm wondering how successful creators are, because they're usually not PR people at doing their own PR, and how that affects the bottom line. Has it been a success for you, or is it been mixed, or whatever?
Okay, so I have two examples. And the answer is it depends on the creator. It depends on the property.
I'm good.
We have people who are really good at interacting with their crowds, with the public at large. And as a result, so Jared Sam's really good. He can sell the ears off a cat at conventions and social media, any which way. If he's talking, on podcasts, if he's talking to you, it is hard to beat that energy. He's just great. But it takes a lot of energy. He will sit there and he'll interact with you for hours on it. And then we have other creators who just, when they're at a convention, they'll just sit there. And they're not so good. It's like, and we can't, it's really difficult at times to work with a creator who is sitting like a bump on a pickle, because come on, give me something to work with. But then it's on because I can't say that never works. The best thing I ever saw was one of our friends. We have not published any of his books, but his name is Turner, and he had a volume of his, he had self-published these books. He had collected them into a volume. It was at WonderCon, and he just sat there like this, and he just stacked his books on the table. There was no, no flair, no banners, nothing. And so he's just sitting there like he's practically hostile, emanating this hostility towards people. And they'd be like, "Oh, hey, what's this book about?" Well, guy, roommate's beaver, spirit world. It's cool. I'll buy two. And we're just like, what? And this was when we only had I think 1 or 2 issues of Declan and Chang that we were able, that we had. So we only had 2 floppies. We had a really hard time that WonderCon because it's no one's looking for that. But that WonderCon, he was there Friday, Saturday, and then the only reason he showed up Sunday was because one guy was like, "I promise you, I will be back. I ran out of money. I will be back. Keep these 2 copies for me." And sure enough, the doors opened, Turner sold the last 2 copies, and all he did was sit there that day. So it's weird. I couldn't tell you what works or what doesn't. It's just
it just seemed like a big risk for the publisher.
If we have a creator that is more interactive on social media, you can tell in their sales both through our store and at conventions.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it's generally true of anything, of any title. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they handle the publicity themselves, somebody's handling the publicity. Now we do try to do our best through First Comics official social media channels, but people like interacting with creators. That's part of the reason why I think comic books are so much, what makes them so attractive to the fans is that they can actually interact with the people. How many of us are going to see Ryan Reynolds in person and have him do much more than sign something if he does that? But with comic books, you get to actually talk to the artist, talk to the writer, see the people who produce the thing. It's a really accessible arena. And so when the creator of a book says, "This is my book, I'm the person who you are interacting with that created this thing," it gives it a little bit more of a personal touch, and the sales are better. Now, we couldn't tell you exactly what the percentage was. I can just tell you that it's better than the ones for the creators who don't do anything. So a very long answer to a not so simple question.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Go
Can
ahead.
I just interject a question in there? Do you guys have a particular demographic for your books, or do you?
Our demographic is about as varied as our books. We have a lot of people who remember Zen, Badger, those classic titles from back in the heyday. But then we have some titles that are more attractive to more modern readers. It really runs the gamut from, I think, probably 7-year-old to almost 80.
Sweet. Okay. I'm sorry, Greg, you had a second question.
No, I'll let Jay go first, and then I'll have
Okay.
another question.
So not
Okay.
to out you, but your Wikipedia page says when you were born, and we're the same age, basically. So I have a two full question, but the first one is hopefully when you were younger, you got to experience Grimjack, Nexus, Badger, Dreadstar, and all those titles. Those are that was kind of the second stage of comics for me as far as what comics could be,
right.
Superheroes. For me, that was for me.
Yeah.
So hopefully that happened with you around the same time. And then the second question is, I'm looking at the website and it looks like it feels like you're producing, First is producing their own comics, but also trying to just show that they're fans of comics as well. Is that kind of what the website's trying to do, and the company itself? Because it looks like it's hosting podcasts, and you're not just talking about your comics. It looks like you're talking about everything related.
I can answer the first one. So we actually did not get, because we grew up in Texas, and when we were first collecting comics, of course, the first stage was Marvel. We didn't actually get to DC until much later. But when we started discovering like the more indie stuff, it was weird because our local comic shop would not let us buy anything that wasn't Marvel or DC, because they're like, "You're too young, kid." You're like, "What?" But it's like they were like, "No, because it's not Comics Code approved. I could get in trouble." And we're like, this sucks. But yeah, it's like we managed to get our hands on like Milk, and this was in college, but like Milk and Cheese, Roach Mill, Grendel. Grendel was our first big indie title. But yeah, like, so we actually didn't until fairly recently, because our local comic shop was gatekeeping, and it sucked.
For me, it was Nexus. That was probably one of my fave, just long form, great storytelling.
For years we were trying to hunt down issues of Nexus because it was a great mystery, right? We're sitting there saying, what were they trying to keep from us? And we realized if anything was going to like bust our morals, it was going to be like martial law, which we read years before we read Nexus. We read Nexus, we're like, this is really benign. Like, it's not.
I mean, it's a great story, but it's not.
Yeah.
You would be. That's like, oh my gosh, like, you're 15, you can't read this. It's like, no, and yet somehow let us get our hands on Pat Mills and Kevin O'Neill, which is like the dumbest thing you can do to like a 14-year-old, and yet something happened.
Yeah, they thought it was superheroes, and that therefore was okay. It's Marvel, it's superheroes, you're fine. But as far as the first website goes, yeah, we are very much fans of comic books from the top down. Ken was the first guy to bring comic books to Hollywood. He was instrumental in getting the Road to Perdition made. That's his fault. So Hollywood looking for comic books to turn into movies, that's Ken's fault. And he's been doing it ever since. He's been a fan of the medium. We are too. In common with a lot of kids, it's how we learn how to read. Certainly Chris Claremont is responsible for a lot of our vocabulary.
John Byrne, because the Fantastic Four, his run on that was freaking amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, but yes, we are fans, and we are not we're not jealous about talking about other books that we find to be very good.
Love it.
So yeah, if it's a good book, good is good,
Yeah.
And whether it came from us or someone else, as long as it pushes comics forward, we're okay with it.
Nice. Thank you.
Greg, you had another question, right?
Yeah, and Matt kind of led into it with his comment. I was wondering if First Comics, since you guys come from the industry and are located in LA, I'm in South Orange County.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was wondering if you guys were looking into turning any of your properties into either indie films or indie animation type stuff, and I didn't see much in the way of merch other than the comics itself, not other types of things.
Right. So the answer to that is yes, but we're not like other publishers, because Ken again has been doing this for very long, and he understands exactly how easily things can blow up and like go south, right? So yeah, he's out there, he's pushing various titles. It depends on the creator. Sometimes the creator will say, hey, I've got a guy who's interested, or someone will come to the company and say, hey, is this title available? And then we work something out. But in Ken's mind, there's no reason to talk about that stuff before the chickens have hatched, because otherwise you just wind up sounding like, you know, the boy who cried wolf. Hey, I've got a Hollywood deal. Hey, I've got a Hollywood deal. Hey, I've got Steven Spielberg wants this, and you're just pretty soon people just tune you out because you've just been leading them on for so long. And so yeah.
And in terms of merchandising, other stuff, we would like to, but it's really expensive.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because we have Badger action figures and E-Man action figures, I think from was it Mad Monkey Press? And they were really cool. Like they're great. But if we were like they just so happen to be doing a line of classic indie comic book characters. Whereas we did it ourselves. I mean, like the tooling alone would cost like tens of thousands of dollars for like you know, it's this weird sort of like catch-22. You're not going to get merchandising unless the comic sells more. You're not going to sell more comics unless you have merchandising. So,
well, I imagine you would look for a threshold on the number of followers that you have of a given creator before you would even attempt that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Because I got one more, and it's a doozy.
I want the doozy.
Yeah. Now we're
yeah.
Okay, so here's my question, and let's see if this spurs a lot of debate. Any thoughts on how to make the industry better?
Yeah. Honestly, I think that not. I mean, I'm trying not to sound like a snob here, but and I couldn't even really, and I'm not going to point out any creators because at this point in time, I think it's such a pervasive thing that it's tough to, you know, blame any individual or individuals. We need writers who read more. All these writers that are turning out things like, you know, Spider-Man or Batman. And once again, I'm not trying to dog on anyone in particular. I'm speaking very broadly. A lot of comics read like they were written by someone who has read nothing but comics. It's, you know, back in the day, you had movies that were made, you know, based off of Broadway plays or, you know, novels or whatever, you know, different media, different platforms, different systems. And nowadays it's like, you know, how many Joker stories can I have where it's just essentially the Killing Joke but amped up to 11? I think a lot of writers today also use it as a springboard. They're hoping to get it into, you know, hey, if I create, you know, Dr. Kilgore, that he'll make it into the next Avengers movie, you know, or whatever. You know, and these, I think a lot of modern creators don't understand that you know, a lot of the stuff from like the Avengers movies or whatnot were taken from comics when we were kids. They were like 40 years old, 50 years old. You know, back when it was almost shameful to be a comic book creator. You know, when people are like, "You do what? Aren't you a bit old for that?" And so, generally speaking, I think that's the case. That, you know, you need people who actually read novels and not just the popular ones. You know, I mean, it's very easy to sit there and say, well, I'm going to take a Cormac McCarthy bent on this. It's like, well, yeah, but he's freaking popular as, you know, his writing is popular as all heck. And, you know, or, you know, Thomas Harris or whoever, you know, you know, really dive into the world of like, you know, plays or novels. And, you know, and I know plays is actually probably a bad idea right now because it's like, you know, oh, you know,
reading scripts.
Last year we had Paul Kupperberg on here. The topic was him being a part of that first generation of writers who were comic book fans.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
I think that another thing that they need to do is maybe, like, writers are going to do what they're going to do, and I agree that they should be more well read, but definitely the editors. Back in the day when you had like Louise Simonson and Ann Nesenti, those were some amazing books. And
Mark Gruenwald.
Yeah, and you hear from people who worked at the time that they were the ones who sort of kept the writers from going nuts and like writing some truly bizarre stuff that just didn't make any sense. And I think that the editors are, I don't know whether they fear that they can be replaced, or they're just not getting enough time in the limelight. But I think editors should be better at their jobs. Like these sort of event type things. Oh my goodness, it's 6 issues and Batman finds out that his brain has been replaced by a chip. You're like, okay, maybe that sells books in the short term, right? But it doesn't do anything for the long term, longevity of Batman.
It's like that gif of Batman, Adam West running with the bomb. Eventually that bomb is either going to be disposed of or blow up, and then that story is over. But they don't consider the ramifications of that.
And so I think that they need to get stronger editors. And certainly our experience with Ken has solidified that quite a bit. It's not enough to sit there and say that, oh, well, the editor can tell you no. The editor's also got to have some input that is somehow productive or helpful, and not just this fiat that says thou shalt write this or thou shalt not write that.
I was wondering more, not so much about the creative, because I think, there's always room for improvement when it comes to the creative side. But what about the business side? I mean, the the business model to me doesn't work anymore compared to the way it worked back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when kids could find comic books, in their anywhere, and they could afford them.
Well, yeah. Now we get
and they couldn't get there. There wasn't as much competition for their attention.
We're getting economic.
Yeah. So the easiest and surest way to get comic books to thrive as a medium again is to make sure that, for one, minimum wage goes up. People can't survive from what they're making. And when you can't survive, you have no room for disposable entertainment. Now, I read a comic book, maybe if it's well written, beautifully drawn, and somehow resonates with me, one in 100 books, and I'm being very generous, will stick with you. And you can read that book over and over and over again, and you're just endlessly entertained by it. But if I'm sitting there and every month I've got maybe $20 that I can afford on some sort of entertainment, I'm putting it towards a video game. That's a dynamic entertainment source that's not repetitive. It's as socially interactive as we're going to get in this day and age. And so, yeah, the living wage has to go up.
I think another thing too is that we need to understand that comics need to do more to, for lack of a better, they need to entertain more. And I don't want to sound like some weirdo Comicsgate guy, because I'm not. But I think that a lot of comics turn a lot of readers off by putting their message forward rather than the story. Now, like I said, I am 100% for having a good message in your books. Chris Claremont did it with the Uncanny X-Men. I mean, oh my God, that was brilliant. But the people have to care about the characters for the message to resonate. You know, you care about the characters through a good story. And, you know, I mean, as Americans, we don't like to be told what to do, what to think, whatever. And so it's almost like getting kids to eat their vegetables. You trick them into accepting a good message. And, you know, I'm not going to sit there and say that we don't need diversity. We do. You know, you look back at like those old 80s sitcoms, it's like, this is a really boring America. Everyone here is white and male, you know, and, you know, I'm not against diversity. I'm not against inclusion, but as a, you know, as an entertainment form, you have to attract as large a crowd as you can. And you do that by crafting a good story, an entertaining story with good characters, good dialogue, everything like that.
And not to blow our own horn too much, but one of the titles that First publishes is a beautiful example of that, Space Negro. It is about Supernova Watkins. He is the last black man in existence in the universe. There's literally no one else like him, right? And Jared has managed to craft a story that is both informative to the black experience as well as highly entertaining to anyone who reads it. So I guess
it has attracted a really broad audience. We have kids now. To be fair, their parents approved the purchase, but we've had readers from, I want to say, the age of 10 up to the age of 80 buying this book. Now, it is a caustic, biting commentary on modern race relations. But that's all in the message, not in the story. The story is just, as he calls it, Black Buck Rogers. You know, but it's brilliantly told, and very entertaining. You know,
in much the same way as, like, you know, Blazing Saddles was. You know, you can watch Blazing Saddles, and there's no mistaking which side of the civil rights argument Mel Brooks is on, right? But it doesn't come off as a treatise on civil rights, which certainly there's room for those types of stories, you know, like Malcolm X, brilliant movie, loved it, and that was its theme. But if your intent is to entertain in other ways, in, you know, fantastical ways, there's a fine line that you have to walk between, you know, basically bludgeoning your reader with the message that you're trying to get across and tricking them into seeing the message, right? Like, make them work a little bit. Like,
Lovetown is the same way. You know, it's a film noir type series with magic and, you know, vampires and werewolves and ghouls, but, you know, magic is, you know, almost you know, a stand-in for things like, you know, performance enhancing drugs. It takes a, you know, it takes its toll. You know, vampirism is not glamorous. It is, you know, it makes you a social pariah. It makes you an outcast, you know, akin to any unfortunate class of, you know, person that is marginalized by society. You know, you have other abilities, but that doesn't stop people viewing you negatively.
At San Diego, I had two different people come up. One of them said, "Hey, do you have any more Lovetown?" And I said, "Yeah, we've got some new stuff." And she said, "You know, I found it, I read it, and I thought it was the perfect metaphor for the AIDS epidemic of the 80s." And I said, "Yes, you can certainly, that is certainly, you know, something that is consistent with the story that we tell, that vampirism is not good and they're treated like a subclass." But I had a second customer, same thing. They were looking for another copy of, another hardcover of Lovetown. And he said, yeah, it's neat because like it's, all about race relations and stuff like that, because you've got these people who are this underclass and they're useful, but they're not tolerated.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, like it's a broad indictment of intolerance. And I thought that it really helped. It made me feel pretty good, because it's like, okay, good. Then our message got across. We weren't being too subtle. And underestimating your readership is a really quick way to write a boring story. Let the people think, let them draw their own conclusions, and give them something to work at. Don't spell it out for them.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask one more question. We're gonna close it for next. We're at the 1 hour mark already.
Yikes.
Let me ask you, do you guys have any dream projects that you guys want to work on?
Honestly, I'm working on it right now.
Yeah, without sounding too pat, yeah. We're doing what we love. Like I would say there are some creators we would like to work with. We've John McCrae is absolutely brilliant. We would love to get him for a full-length book or even a series. Who knows if we can, but we've worked with him a little bit.
Larry Stroman, we got to work.
Amazing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So I have to say this. Larry Stroman we gave him a comic script to give him the feel of the story, and he started drawing the entire thing. But he was like, I don't have time to draw 60 pages. It's a 60-page book. But the pencils he turned in were like so good. Like, because Matt and I are doing some of the art on this. It's like kind of an anthology thing, I'm like, Larry Stroman's pencils beat the living hell out of my finished art. I have to go back and redo every single freaking page I did. Like, same with John McCrae. He did like 6 pages. I'm just like, right. Okay, so we have John McCrae, then we have crap. I'm the crap side.
It's super embarrassing to have people draw characters that you designed better
than you, yeah. But dream project, I don't know. I mean, I would love to work with Grant Parloff, Alan Davis. I think it is a shame that Steve Dillon passed away. He was a really, really great fellow.
If Matt Wagner weren't so insistent upon doing more Grendel, which is great.
Yeah,
I would love to have him do something with us.
Who else? I would love. I mean, I'm gonna get the old hands out of the way. Walt Simonson, John Byrne.
No, I'm gonna go with one that I don't think would be on anyone's list, but it should be on everyone's. Matt Hollingsworth. I would love for him to color anything that we did.
Yeah,
that would be a dream.
Kevin O'Neill, if he hadn't passed away, he was freaking amazing. Loved him. Who else?
So if Pat Mills said, you guys can do a martial law story,
there we go. Yeah,
big shoes to fill, but I would do that.
Yeah.
You guys are just naming everybody from the 80s and 90s, so
because they were friggin' brilliant back then. Like they were amazing. Like
80s and 90s were the 70s were to comics what 70s were for film.
I agree.
I got lucky. My first book I ever produced, I got Rudy Nebrez to do the cover.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
And then my first that was an anthology. and the first series that I ever did, which I'm still shopping around, was drawn by Trevor Von Eden.
That name sounds familiar. What else has he done?
He did that Batman annual with Ras Al Ghul.
Okay.
Right, that's right. Yeah. Oh,
He
wow.
did the Green Arrow miniseries
Yeah.
back in the 80s. So
Oh yeah. Some of those DC artists are so freaking great. Norm
and
Brayfogle.
he was a
Another guy.
co-creator of Black Lightning.
Yeah. Oh wow. Yeah. Norm Brayfogle, he passed away recently. He was brilliant. Yeah, like it sucks. There are a lot of these people who Matt and I would have loved to have worked with, and they were sadly taken too soon. So, you know. But yeah,
Anyways, to let you guys go, but thank you so much. This will be up in a week or so.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I hope to meet you guys in person one of these days. I can make it out to West Coast convention. And if you guys are ever in New York, let's try to get together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mike?
Y'all want to find us on social media? Just Facebook is just the Yuan twins, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Ewan twins or Ewan twins. It's either with the or without.
But yeah, look us up. We'd love to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hope to see you at WonderCon. Yeah.
Cool, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
guys, round of applause. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, good night,
Okay.
everybody. Oh, wait. I just
What?
realized. Let me just very quickly announce who else we got. Let me just pull up the website because I don't remember exactly the dates. Let's see, meet up. So we have coming up next on the 21st, we have Rachel Lindsay, who is a cartoonist. And then in the pipeline, but I haven't put them up on the website yet, is we have John Marr from Publishers Weekly. Will be doing a podcast with us. And let's see, who else do we have? And Bill Campbell, who from Rosarium Publishing. And somebody from graphic medicine, but I have to confirm that yet.
Oh, cool.
Okay, guys. Good night. Happy New Year to everybody.
Take care.
Okay. We'll see you. Bye bye.